45-minute meeting of
the Meet Magic meetings compared to the other meetings that we have. I have thousands of meetings, literally.
And at the end of a 45-minute meeting, I've helped sick kids at the Starlights Children's Hospital, which is my chosen charity.
When you're first meeting someone, you're trying to build a connection. And with Meetings for Good, you just find the connections automatically there.
And when I actually think about what Meet Magic does and the opportunity to spend some time supporting the community of our vendors, but also being able to give back.
And when the opportunity presented itself to join Meet Magic, I jumped at it.
But these ones are different, and the reason they're different is because the vendor wants to meet with you and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
All of those meetings blur into one, but Meeting for Good is memorable.
It absolutely makes sense to do this, and I definitely recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic.
Well, there we are. That's that was Paul Keane and Sean Miller and Dave Cowan and Andrew Webster. If anyone's in Sydney and you know the tech world, you'll know that those four people are absolute rock stars. And they've been amazing supporters of Meet Magic ever since I started, basically. Anyway, I'm Carl. I'm the founder of a purpose-led platform. It's platform as a service, I think some people call it, but I kind of think it's a market network or it's a marketplace. It's called Meet Magic. It's a full software platform that gives executives and decision makers an opportunity to give back just by doing what they do every single day. So this podcast really aims to showcase purpose-driven leaders like Pete and change makers. And it's really my way to share their story because, you know, I think like me, everyone's got a story. So the podcast really is about who inspired them growing up, mentors, their vision for the future. My phone's going off. I should turn this bloody thing off. But anyway, I've just got back from the UK where I honestly had literally the trip of a lifetime. I was just talking to Pete backstage before about what happened on this journey. And I can't tell you, this 4 or 5 weeks in the UK has been nothing short of massive amounts of serendipity. And I wanted to wait until I came on to share, because Pete said to me, have you been to a Forest game? And I got to say, something better than going to a Forest game actually happened. So let me introduce Pete to the stage so we can have a chat. Hello, mate.
Oh, afternoon. How you going?
How are you?
Good, real good.
Now, I can't tell me. I remember Brendan Pongia, who's over there in New Zealand, one of our big ambassadors and actually a shareholder. He introduced us, didn't he?
He did. A couple of years ago now, I reckon. Well, it's probably actually even before COVID times.
Yeah.
If they existed. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah, no, it was really good. And it was, yeah.
Where did you, so you're English. Where's your hometown?
Originally from West London. The end of the Met Line, Carl. The end of the Met Line, Piccadilly and Central, which was awesome for a night out. You normally, you knew you were going to get home. So it was a little place called Ruislip. So I've been in New Zealand now for 20 years.
Yeah, right. You've been like the same as me in Australia. I left England in '95.
Yeah. I loved it. I came traveling, after university to, Australia and New Zealand, and I had two choices, Melbourne or Auckland. And luckily, serendipity, as we call it, Carl, you met a Kiwi and she dragged me back to Auckland. It was, awesome. Best thing.
Well, it's actually my second home. It's my spiritual home, I think, New Zealand. It was literally 1995, my birthday. I left. No, it was November 1995. I got on a plane for the very first time. Never been on a plane before, and I sat crying out the window because I knew I was escaping. My life was being saved, basically, because my life was either going to go to jail or die, or some shit was going to happen in Nottingham. It was like my life was just a mess. And I ended up landing in Auckland, 95, and I pitched a tent in the Mount Eden Backpackers. $17 a night they charged me to stick a tent in the back garden, and I ended up working on the Sky City Casino.
Yeah, nice.
So if you go into any one of those, if you go into that casino, any one of those metal plates at the bottom of the doors, $10 a pop. Nice. I was earning $1,000 a week as a backpacker, as a 25-year-old, thinking, shit, why the hell am I living in Nottingham?
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense. So I ended up having the best time working in Otahu, King's College. I did we did some stuff on George Courts in K Road. Worked with Frank Bottica. Remember him?
Yep. Yeah, rugby league, rugby union.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with him up on George Courts on K Road. I think he popped his ankle or something on the pitch. It turned around or whatever it was, some weird shit. But it was I often say now, anyone that it's kind of weird. I've got more of a connection with Kiwis than I do with Australians, which is, I think, for that reason, because I spent most of my time as a first time out of England. Anyway, enough about me. Pete,
Carl,
tell us about you. What's your name? Remember Cilla Black? What's your name? Where you come from? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. God, that's a blast from the past, Carl. Takes it back to my youth.
So what?
Tell us
a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Pete Yates. Born in West London, moved to New Zealand 20 years ago. Love being here. Based out of Auckland. Got a family, 2 kids, wife. Totally settled in the New Zealand life. I love the outdoors, being near the beach, all that stuff you never really quite got in England.
Yeah.
And I've been in tech ever since the late 90s, sorry. Even experienced Y2K. You tell people these days, some youngsters, they got no idea what you had to go through in mid 1990. So been in tech that long. And I've been in technology ever since coming to New Zealand. So 20 odd years.
Wow.
Love the industry. It's a very small industry, especially in Auckland. You know a lot of people. When you go to events, it's just great catching up with friends and meeting new ones. Best place to be, Auckland. Love it. Love New Zealand.
What got you into tech? How did you get into tech? Is it something that inspired you?
No, interestingly, I started off life after university, as we all do, Carl. Not a clue what I wanted to do. No idea. Did a degree in geology and geography, randomly enough. And went into tech because I started off in recruitment, building recruitment. Wandering around building sites in London, trying to find work for Sparkies and Chippies. I ended up moving into IT recruitment, and I used to speak to a lot of people there. And I thought, hang on, I can do this. So what I ended up doing was applying to, I felt like 100 companies that took people with degrees, IT companies that took people with degrees, and they didn't really care if you didn't have IT experience. And one of them said yes. And that was an awesome time. So I did 5 years and got promoted 3 or 4 times, went to live in Amsterdam for 9 months, traveling around Europe with the job. It was just the best life. It was for me, it was the best thing. And I think what it did, it gave me a bit of structure, a bit of something to aim towards. So you do your certifications. It was a career path. I think that was probably something missing, some sort of something to guide where you're going, because I had no idea career-wise, and it was just nice to get on a path, and then you just kept going. So that was the best thing I ever did, Carl. And then coming here,
I did the same. I did the same thing in sales. I mean, I had no idea. I landed in Australia and started knocking on doors, flogging cable telly. So, I mean, back then you would have gone into tech at the beginning of when tech was basically there's nothing around. I mean, we were just having a conversation backstage about how the trip was. And this, for me, when we talk about tech and where it's come from, so I ended up in Greece, just for the sake of going back to Greece to close a loop. So when I left New Zealand, I came to Australia, and then I went to Greece for 6 months. And when I was in Greece, I worked in this pub called the Flying Pig, and it was basically an English bar that had been set up. I helped the guy set it up. It was a Australian Greek, sorry, and named Paul, and he set this pub up called the Flying Pig. I learned to cook food as a kid, so I did the food in the pub, so the fish and chips and all the English stuff, and they had beer on tap and whatever. In 1997, there was a lot of terrorism going on in Greece at the time. And this guy called Kostas Padatikos, who was a very, very wealthy shipyard owner, he got shot 6 times in the back, and he died on my lap. It was one of the most traumatic things you've ever seen. But he took his last breath, me sitting with his head on my lap on this street called Philonos in Piraeus in the port of Athens. And I just had to go back and close that loop because it's been 27 years. I'm 54 now. It's been 27 years since I've done that. And there's always been something at the back of your head thinking, you got to go back and try and close that loop. And it was just the most remarkable thing. And we went into the Flying Pig and it's not there anymore. It's something completely different. And there was a guy, the only one person in the bar. And I started talking to these people. This guy was having a whiskey. I started talking to these people behind the counter saying, do you remember this thing happening? It was 27 years ago. You know, I used to work downstairs in the kitchen. And this guy looks up and he goes, is your name Carl? I went, yeah. He said, I was here when you were here.
Wow.
He said, do you realize across the road, there's a plaque on the wall with the guy's name who got killed that day? And so I walked across the road and sure enough, there's a plaque on the wall, 28, literally tomorrow. No, it was today, 28th of May or 27th. It was on the 27th or the 28th of May. The actual thing happened. And it was, everyone thought it was firecrackers being let off, but it was the guys getting shot. And anyway, I reconnected with this guy. I'm a long way about telling you about technology. He says to me, have you got any pictures from when you were working at the Flying Pig? And I'm thinking, 1997, there was no mobile phones.
No,
I mean, the only mobile phone was those big bricks. Do you remember the big brick ones? Yeah. And they didn't have cameras on. So that's how long ago it was, which is kind of crazy. So you would have started off in tech when there was nothing, basically.
Yes, I remember my first job. We had no computers. Yeah, it was it was cards. We were right. So my CRM card was a bunch of cards. You know, and then I first got in, and you know, there was no flat screen TVs. It was all CRTs. You know, some green screens. My first network I put in had modems. Wow. 19.2, you know, K modems. So
that's
it was
incredible. Didn't you work for Vanco?
That was, yes, many years ago. Yes, Vanco was, yeah. Yep, they're no longer, unfortunately, but it was a great company. Yeah, just starting out.
Yeah, well, all of my background is all telco.
Gotcha. Yep.
And everything from frame relay through to ATM.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
I mean, MPLS was, I think, the last MPLS network I flogged was to Andrew Madazak, who's actually on my advisory board now. He was at the Commonwealth Bank at the time, and he actually bought a migration from frame relay to MPLS, and I ended up sitting up turning routing tables up with.
Yeah. All that old tech, frame relay, ATMs, ISDNs.
What's MediaWorks? Tell me about them.
Oh, awesome place. I've been there for 18 months now. So it's a media company. So it's a media, radio, and outdoor business, digital outdoor business. Love the media entertainment industry. Got it. You know, for me, it's always about the industry, and the industry has been awesome. I love it. You know, we have concerts in our office, live concerts. So we had a Kiwi band there a couple of weeks ago called Zed, which I never heard of, but heard their song. Great songs, and we had Teddy Swims come in last year. So it's awesome fun. There's a lot going on. It's a challenging industry, as you've seen in the media, well, particularly over here, with what's going on with TVNZ and TV3. So it's a challenging one. So it's constantly looking for innovation, better ways of doing things, being more efficient, getting more with less money. But it's a great job. Love the industry, great people to work with, and they're a very passionate bunch. So
what do you think? Where do you think it's all going to go? Because I mean, there's this whole media world at the moment. It's kind of crazy when you look at this free speech thing. Whether or not you watch the TV, some people say if you watch it, you're misinformed, but if you don't watch it, you're uninformed.
I think it's the big thing is you got to look out for that fake news. I think it's the big thing, and people are getting their news, their weather on whatever platforms they want to use. It's all, and that's where I think your tech's going. It's all about consuming it when you want to, where you want to, and what you want. It's and I think there'll be more power to the hand. There'll be more in your mobile phone. So they'll get more and more powerful, and you want to do more and more things through it. As if we don't do enough at the moment, but I think it'll be power to the consumer.
I think it's really interesting. We were talking about my daughter before. So she was slagging off these private members clubs in the UK. But I think when I look at what's going on with her generation and the whole TikTok generation, it is really interesting. I mean, most of the people now, and if you look at the trend, you remember when Facebook first started, well, actually MySpace and all those other ones, they were the kids in the beginning, then the parents came, and then the kids left and they went somewhere else. And then Snapchat came out, and then all the kids got on Snapchat, and then the parents came to Snapchat, the kids left and went to Facebook. Then the parents came to Facebook and the kids left and went to Instagram. And then the parents came to Instagram and the kids left and they went somewhere else. Where was it? I don't know. Not Snapchat. It would have been somewhere else after Instagram. But now they've all left and they've gone to TikTok. And all of a sudden, you're starting to see the rise of all the parents and the middle-aged boomers getting onto TikTok now. In fact, I saw Rishi bloody Sunak do a TikTok, Prime Minister of the UK, because all the kids on TikTok are talking about the Prime Minister, calling everybody to go and fight conscription to go to war. Yeah. And he's got on TikTok to say, actually, guys, I'm not asking everybody to go to war. I want it to be a choice. You can either choose to go and do some stuff, or you can not, or you can do these other things. And there's care in the community and all this army kind of stuff. So you've got to sort of look at where it's all going to go. All the parents and the kids, all the parents are now on TikTok. So what's next? Something's going to come up.
There's bound to be something that's not even been invented, Carl. But I think the important thing is, though, like as parents, we understand what our kids are using and how they're using it. I think that's the best thing is, to be informed about what's out there and what kids are using. And also, I think that helps when you're managing different generations of people, what platforms they like, how they like to interact. And dare I say, some people just like to talk, face to face. I don't think's lost. I think it's all about understanding what's out there and being aware of the technology and how people are using it. So to your point, you've got to understand which people are using what and whether your kids are using what platform. It's just being informed. I think that's the key thing.
I'm seeing that there's a lot of reports in Australia that the Australian government's going to restrict social media for the young'uns because they reckon it's bad for their health. What's happening in New Zealand? Is there same sort of thing going on there?
Haven't heard, Carl. Everything as we always kids is everything in moderation. Yeah. So I think that's the key thing. And I think you can if you ban something, people want it more. And I think it's all about education and educating people on what could happen if you watch too much or don't take an informed view of what's out there and not necessarily taking things in face value and questioning and asking. But I think it's just it's educating yourself and your kids and those around you and about what those issues could be and challenging them when your kids ask you something or your peers ask you something. Okay, well, let's take a considered view on that. Rather than just taking things at face value, Carl.
No, totally. I mean, I've got this. I grew up in Nottingham. It was pretty tough. There was not a lot of stuff going on in our lives that was positive. But I learned very quickly that people always want what they can't have, and they chase what moves away from them. And I knew the psychology of if you keep telling people to stop doing stuff, the likelihood is they'll do it. But and I had this approach with my kids, and I just said, look, anything's available to you. I didn't stop them from doing anything, but I made them aware of what the repercussions could be based on my own experience. Here's what happened to me with drugs and alcohol and everything else when I was young. We grew up through the rave scene, for Christ's sake. LSD was really good when we were young. Now it's just full of chemicals and shit that's bad for you. But back when we were in our early teens, you pop one of those pills and go dancing for 3 days, and you'd have a great time. And that was just how it was. But today it's more risky. And so I just had these conversations with my kids about this, and it ended up being that she ended up being more aware of what was happening out there. Rather than me saying, don't do drugs, don't do that, it ended up being the opposite. She ended up not doing anything because it was available. And so rather than restricting it, I sort of said, I made it available, and it had the opposite effect, which was I don't know if it works for everybody, but it certainly worked for her.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good approach. I think you could block your kids' internet and usage at home, but when they get out of the home, they might see something, on someone else's phone. And we always say, at home, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So just be careful of what you look out there, and you don't want those sleepless nights or a nightmare coming at you. I agree. It's educating.
It really is. I mean, talking about that, where do you see all the tech and all the future trends? I mean, is there anything around AI that are you scared of it? What's going on?
Look, Carl, we can't have a conversation about tech unless we mention AI.
I know.
We've done it. Look, I think AI, for most of things that I talk about in the tech world, is really around what problem am I solving? And I think that's the key thing, again, with AI and with technology. I use that in my personal life and at work. I always ask people, what problem am I solving? And I think AI is the same thing. You've got to find a problem for it to solve, rather than going, I need AI. So there's definitely, I think some things you've got to talk about there. I definitely think, as we talked about, it's going to be more power to the hand and consumption, when, where, wherever, whatever platform. I think we'll end up owning less. We'll end up consuming it. I think it's already kind of going that way. I
think we were happy.
Weren't we? What's that?
Weren't we happier when we were consuming less? I mean, I don't know about you, but when COVID was happening, and I know there was lots of people that were affected badly by COVID, but I actually quite enjoyed it. I mean, it was people started talking to each other. They were being kind to each other. They all of a sudden found patience for some reason, and they would stop and let you pass and talk to you and say hello. And there was none of this rushing around like madness everywhere. And it sort of had this opposite effect. And people started to cook at home a lot more, spend time with the kids a lot more, and be more engaged. There's a lot of positive that came out of COVID.
Yeah, agree, Carl. I agree. I think it actually proves that we can, from a work sense, we can work from home. We trust our teams, we trust our people, and it's also important to have those continuity things in place to make sure you can function when another pandemic comes. I think what I think it was hard, though. I think it was hard for the kids, and I think mental health for children suffered, not seeing their friends, and I think people to a certain extent at work, in the work sense, we're social animals. We need that. I think largely some of that working at home practices has moved on now. I think a lot of organisations, I guess so less so here, are still got that hybrid working. We still want people in the office at set days, but we're fairly flexible. But I agree with you, Carl. I think we've kind of almost gone back a bit. We can be a bit meaner, I think, and a bit shorter, because we've got lots going on, and we were used to not having much going on, and no kids' sports. You haven't got anything to worry about. The only problem was when you were at home during COVID, actually, finishing in time, making sure you stop and don't carry on working because it's right there. So I think there's some good things, but I think there's some, not so good things around that mental health with your kids and those at work. And it is, I think it's highlighted it more, and I still don't think we'll see the impact of that yet. No, children. I still think there's some stuff to go there. But I agree with you, Carl. It did. I think we were a lot nicer people during that time.
I think so. I think there's a lot of positives that come out of it. I think the whole work from home hybrid thing is, I mean, everyone's a twat these days, aren't they? They're all Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. This is like the normal thing now. We were just talking before about London. They were 10 feet deep at the pub on a Thursday afternoon, and I said, we're going to sit down and have a pint at the pub as well, because you can't go to London and not stand outside a pub when there's 10 people deep on a sunny day in London. It's like, let's just join in the fun. And I stood there for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm talking to somebody, and it ends up being some guy in cybersecurity who works at UBS across the road, because it's a square mile, and all the bankers are in the pub having a meeting, and it was just brilliant. I missed that so much, but there was something about the coming together there that was just so special. I can't help but think that hybrid work model has given us the ability to travel further and live further away from the office, we don't, because it's not 5 days a week anymore in the office. You can afford to live, 30, 40 miles away and travel two to 3 days, commute 2 to 3 days rather than 5. And that just makes your life a hell of a lot easier, knowing that you can. And Thursdays become the new Friday, of course, and Mondays you take that off as well because you have a bender on a Sunday as well. So it's, I think you can get more done in 4 days at work anyway than you can in 5, and I think it's better for your mental health and better for productivity. I've seen it happen a few times now.
Yeah, I think happier people leads to better productivity, and with that cost of living, people can make that choice and move further out of the bigger cities where it can be cheaper if they need to, and they get a better life for them and their kids. And I agreed. I do think and here in New Zealand or Auckland, we're seeing definitely a lot more restaurants and that shutting down. So ones that have been around for a while, because I think people aren't necessarily going out as long or as much.
Yeah,
because things are costing more as well, which is a real shame. I still think we've got to bounce back. I still think we're behind, the UK by the sounds of it, Carl, in the recovery.
Do you remember when you were in the UK? And I remember this. They would always talk about the house prices going up, and they'd say how lucky for the homeowners. The house prices are going up, and and all the cost of living stuff. They never, they never talk about the cost of food going up and how lucky you are because you got 8 cans of Guinness in the fridge, and all of a sudden you're a bit more richer than the other man. But I think there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on with that cost of living crisis that just doesn't make sense to me. House prices are definitely going up, and if you live in the centre of London and the cost of your mortgage, the interest rates have gone through the roof. Of course, it's gone from whatever to whatever percent they are now. All of a sudden your toothpaste goes up, and it's a pain in the arse. But if you're living further away from London, your toothpaste going up is actually not. It doesn't impact you as much. But the cost of living crisis now, with everything going up, if you've got quite an expensive house in the centre of London or whatever, and your interest rates are going up, well, of course you're going to be heavily impacted by that. So I think there's swings and roundabouts everywhere. I don't know. You mentioned before about owning nothing. I literally own nothing. I don't have any assets. I've got no houses. I've got a 10-year-old BMW, and I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Well, you can cope with this kind of thing, Carl. Your mortgage rate's not going to go up. Your rent might, but you've got nothing else to worry about, I guess. So I think, and I think it would be hard, potentially harder for certain generations to afford home ownership anyway.
Well, I think if you look at the cost of a deposit in Australia, they're talking about for the kids today, it's going to take them 40 years to save for a deposit. Never mind the house. I think if you look at the actual cost of a house versus your annual salary, most places around the world, 3 to 4 times your annual salary, you can buy a house. I think in Australia it's something like 15 or something stupid. I don't know. It's just off the charts, and so it's kind of. But I think the kids, like you mentioned before, everything's in your pocket. The power's in your pocket. These kids have got the opportunity to make a couple of $1 million overnight. They've got drop shipping stuff they can do on bloody. They can go and research the best air fryers and then set up a shop online within 5 minutes and have people buying it without even owning a product.
Yeah.
So
it's all consuming, Carl. It's all consuming. It's just consuming. Yeah.
Literally.
Totally.
Turn it into. We were talking before about you asked me if I got to go to a Forest game while I was in the UK, and I'm going to tell this story because it was just better than going to a Forest game. Who do you support? Who's your team?
Oh, Liverpool.
Oh, Klopp. Yeah.
Big still point with him. But at least they won something this year.
Yeah, well, I was meant to be at Hillsborough. Meant to be at Hillsborough the day that Hillsborough thing in the Liverpool end. I was a Liverpool supporter.
Yeah.
Kenny Dalglish, Grobbelaar, they were all my heroes.
Yeah, growing up with those guys. Yep. Yeah, it's awful event.
Crazy situation, but so there we were. We couldn't get any tickets to the games because it was like impossible. We tried to get some Tottenham tickets, some Arsenal tickets. No chance. I mean, they're like rocking horse shit. You just can't find them anywhere. But I got a client of mine, and this client's a very cool client. They're called Teamform, and they're headquartered in Australia. And what they do as a company is they, like yourself, you're a tech leader. Let's say you've got 2,000 staff underneath you or 100 staff underneath you, and there's multiple projects going on, and you've got no real visibility of all those projects under one go. Everything's on a spreadsheet, individual spreadsheets. They bring all that stuff together and give you a clear view of what's happening. And they're called Teamform, a very, very cool company. Anyway, the managing director, he said, "Come with me, I'll take you to Soho House." So he gave us a tour of Soho House in London. And first time I've ever been there. It's a private club, but it's a club just for the creative types. If you're a suit, you can't go in. They don't let you in. So you've got to be you've got to be in advertising, or you've got to be, you know, in some sort of creative industry, whether you're in tech or whatever. Anyway, we had a great time in there. A few pints, talking about business. He said, "Look, before you go, I want you to come back and see the Shoreditch one, because it's got a pool in there." And it's like, I'm thinking, it's probably like the bloody Ivy in Sydney, you know, it's a pool bar, pretty tacky and all that sort of shit. Anyway, we turned up to meet him at Shoreditch about 6 o'clock one night, and we're sitting down, and he looks over and he goes, "You'll never guess who's over there." And it was Brennan Johnson, who plays for Tottenham. He was sold from Nottingham Forest for 50 million quid.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And he's there with his dad, David Johnson, who was a complete legend in my time, and a massive Forest, obviously, and his mum. I could not believe this was better than going to a Forest game. I got to actually go over and have a chat with David and talk about the old times of Nottingham, and then his mum. So I've got my business card. I don't know if you've seen them, but everyone that's I've got one in my pocket. Everyone that's seen them in Sydney, they're a little casino chip. And so my business card is a Meat Magic casino chip with a QR code on the back. So I end up giving one of these QR codes to each Brennan Johnson, to his dad and his mum. I mean, this is fucking, when is this ever going to happen in my life
story.
again?
Yeah, great story, Carl. Yeah.
And then 2 days later, I get an email from a charity in Nottingham saying they've just been put in touch with me by Brennan Johnson's mum and love to have a chat with me. So we're now having a conversation about supporting a charity in Nottingham through Brennan Johnson's mum.
Awesome. You never know, do you? What happens, Carl, from those random meetings? No, awesome.
You don't know, but you know, you've been involved obviously with the Meat Magic stuff and, you know, giving back and this whole social impact stuff. What got you into that?
I do like to give back, you know. I think, you know, you get to where you get to, and you've learned some lessons on the way, some things that maybe didn't work, and it's really good to support, you know. And I've been to, you know, when I get asked to talk, I like to do that, you know, talk at a further education school, or I talk to the kind of a immigration centre, immigrant myself, you know, and talk about what I found about IT and kind of give them some lessons learned, you know, that I've done across the way. And I've also, whether you call it blogging anymore, but I enjoy writing. So I run my own website, you know, with stuff I've talked about, you know, living the tech.com, you know, and I talk about things that I've learned, or things that I've seen, or, you know, just generally just try and share some, I guess, impart some wisdom or something, you know. As they say, you know, wisdom's wasted on the old. You know, you want to be able to give that back to others in IT and technology. And I definitely, you know, like giving chances to people that want to get in tech. And if you've got that opportunity, say, you know, at a service desk role, like someone gave to me, you know, you try and give people that opportunity that didn't necessarily, you know, haven't worked in IT, but want to get into IT, and you just give them the opportunity to start at the service desk and work their way up. So I think just any opportunity I do, or I can, Carl, I do like to be able to give back or give some career advice if they want to talk about it, you know, or ask. Yep. And, you know, things like Meat Magic's great as well. Do enjoy doing that. And it's great, you know, to actually, you know, you meet the, you know, partners and stuff. You know, why not get them to give you some money to give towards your charity? It's a win-win there, Carl. So awesome.
It totally is. And I don't know, this trip to London that I just had was so remarkable. We were talking about serendipity before. I think our job as leaders is to create serendipity every single day.
Yes.
And you can do that by just being aware of what's going on around you, and just being conscious of everything. And really lucky accidents happen when you're aware of stuff, and you can make them happen. And they feel good. You know, one of our clients put me in touch with this guy called Raphael Rowe, who's you might have seen him in the UK. He was jailed for 12 years for a murder he didn't commit, and then while he was in jail, he became a journalist, and now he's came out of jail, and he's now got this worldwide famous Netflix show called The World's Toughest Prisons.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, gotcha. Yep.
You've probably seen the show,
Yeah,
and so I said let's have a coffee. And we sat down in London for 2 hours. I had a meeting with Ogilvy, with Rory Sutherland, and I was almost late for it because Raphael and I was just sat down talking about love, about life, about shit that's happened to us as kids, about how shit it was as growing up as a kid, about how we had no love in the house and all this sort of stuff. And we just bonded like crazy around that. And our job as parents now is to stop that and give something completely different to our own children and make sure that they feel loved and whatever. And that's what we've done. We've sort of broken that whole mold. That's not our parents' fault. That's just the way they were raised. That was completely, it was unheard of for them to say, I love you. In fact, my dad didn't say, I love you until I was 52. And so this is just their generation and whatever. But Raphael said, look, why don't you bring me out to Sydney? I'll come and speak at your event. And I said, well, why don't I just add your foundation to our platform until we can raise some money for you? So he's now coming out next week on the 7th of May. He's flying out to Sydney. He's going to speak at our event. And we're launching this thing called an impact card. Now, imagine you have a meeting now through Meet Magic. When you finish that meeting, you'll get given a $300 voucher, which you can then issue to the charity in New Zealand. So you'll get to share that yourself and feel good about that. And so we're going to do that with probably 8 or so charities. And we're launching it on June the 11th in Sydney. Now, I think Cure Kids is still our charity, and Brendan's obviously working with Cure Kids. So we're looking forward to obviously. It's just a beautiful thing. It's like you're going to work, you're having these meetings anyway. It's like, why would you not? It's
it's a great idea, Carl. No, it's worth supporting. Absolutely.
I'm really excited about the fact that we've got Raphael Rowe coming to support us, and people like Rory Sutherland from Ogilvy, who's probably the number one behavioral science man on the planet, number one ad man for sure. He's like the godfather of advertising, and he's given us some tips and some guidance on. And I'd love to get your opinion on this actually, because it's probably something that him and his team have mentioned to me. Do you know the execs? Like, you get approached a lot by salespeople. They're constantly knocking on your door, trying to sell you shit. And this is every one of the execs on our platform tells the same thing. It's email, it's LinkedIn, it's text, it's every channel is flooded. God help them if you've been to a conference because your phone don't work for 2 weeks afterwards because you're getting harassed by all the vendors that have been there. And that's just a standard procedure. One of the things that he said to me, and I'd love to get your opinion, he said, if the vendors reach out to you and they tell you that I've met with 5 of your peers, so hi Pete, my name is so-and-so from this company. I've just met with 5 of your C-suite peers in the media industry. I'd love to come and share what we've shared with them. How would that land with you versus, hi Pete, can I come and show you my widgets?
That would be a lot better, Carl, because that's actually getting some insight there rather than just trying to sell me something where I actually may not have a problem in the first place. So I'd much rather if you can get some value from them from those conversations, that's much better than just trying to sell you something you may have no interest in wanting because you haven't got a problem. They miss a step by trying to sell you something.
Yes, well, I'm a big fan of not asking someone to marry you on a first Tinder date. You just don't. It's just the crackers. Now, 1:40. I'm gonna bail off to the city in a minute. But before I go, we've got these things called Socratic questions. I didn't even know what that word means. I left school at 15. I had to go and look at what it meant. But I'm going to ask you some questions, and you got to say just first thing that comes into your head. Fair?
Okay, that could be dangerous, Carl.
All right. Texting or talking?
Talking.
Good. Chocolate or cheese?
Depends mood, but I go chocolate though. Actually.
This is gonna be a laugh. Say something in Asian language.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. And do you respect Kanye West?
I don't know him, so I don't know. And again, you know, do you believe everything you read? So
I don't know.
I don't listen to his music, and I don't, listen to anything he says. So, yeah.
Everything he said about P. Diddy was right.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. And the final one. This is one. What was your first girlfriend? What nickname did your first girlfriend have for you?
Jeez, I cannot remember. But I've been called Yatesy, or funnily enough, Carl, I get called Pom a lot at the moment when I play cricket.
That's not fair.
People call me Pom.
That's not fair. Are you a cricketer?
Yeah, I do play a bit of cricket.
You know my cousin
captained
England.
Cricket. What's that, Carl?
You know my cousin captained England.
No.
Darren Goff.
Oh, I know Darren. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fast
He's
bowler.
the only one. He's the only one that got a hat trick against the Aussies.
Yeah, he did Test match. Yeah. Destroy. Yeah, he was a fast bowler. Yeah.
And if you ever want to be inspired, just go and watch that on YouTube. That Goffy hat trick. It is like never happened since.
Pretty exceptional, especially against the Aussies.
Yeah. Well, my son, I've got a son in the UK. He's 34, just turned 34 on the 21st of May. He's a groundsman at Trent Bridge.
Awesome.
So that's his first.
Yeah, okay.
That's his first real job from the ghetto.
Yeah.
And he's got aspirations of going to become a groundsman at the Forest Ground.
Nice. Yeah.
And what I didn't realise is they can get access to free tickets.
There you go. So there's you'll be supporting me in that one, Carl. I bet.
Exactly. Pete, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks for spending some time with us. It really is just very simple banter rather than just talking anything to do with tech and all that sort of stuff. I find it quite boring, really. I think the whole AI thing. I mean, what a hand shandy it is. Everyone everywhere talking about what they think they know about it, and no one knows. No one's got a clue. I'll tell you the only thing that's happening is that Nvidia is making trillions of dollars. And one of the things that I see quite often is this rise that happened. Remember Cisco? What happened with Cisco? You remember the switches and routers?
Yep.
The Nvidia stock is following exactly the same path as Cisco. And if you look at it over time, it's doing this and then it drops off. And what happens is you have this massive rise before everybody gets into it, and then all the competitors come in and your profit margins drop. So this is what's going to happen. Same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
we remember blockchain, Carl. That was going to be the savior.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying.
What problem was it solving? Anyway. Yeah.
Beautiful, mate.
Well,
thank you again. Thanks for, likewise. And I'd love to get you actually on this impact card so you can feed. I'm looking for the first execs to sort of make use of it. We think it's going to be the way for us to scale. Our biggest problem at the moment is getting as many execs as we can to come and opt into the platform. Yeah. We've built the platform. It's pretty simple now. You can log in. You can even launch a project. You can even launch an AI project on the platform, and we'll match you with vendors, and you can invite them to come and have a conversation with you. So it's a bit like an RFI process, very simple in 4 clicks. But the impact card really is, I think, our way of allowing you to share that as well with your peers and your colleagues. So we're hoping it's going to be the thing that helps us take off, basically. And we're going to be launching one here, then we're going to do one in Singapore, one in the UK, and one in the US. All at the top of Salesforce Tower.
Oh, nice, Carl. Yeah.
So all exciting times ahead. But mate, I better go and get to the city.
You have a good one, Carl. Yeah. No, good to chat. Good to speak to fellow Englishmen overseas.
Yeah, mate. And I'll tell you what, being up. Here's an interesting fact for you. I better shut up talking. Do you know that tube map that you got in London? Do you know it's not designed? Do you know it's not designed geographically? It's designed based on a wiring diagram.
No, didn't know that. There you go, Carl. Learn something new every day.
Because some of the tube stations are so close to each other. It's like one stop, and and it's like 550-meter walk. Well, if you actually put that onto a map, they'd never be able to. You'd never be able to see it.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's actually not. It's not designed based on how London's laid out. It's designed on a. Crazy story.
Easy to read, easy to use. That's what you need. Good UX, Carl. Then, hey.
Exactly. Thanks, Pete.
Cool.
Thanks for your time, mate.
Thanks, you take care.
You too. Bye bye.
See you. Bye.